need to explore the known, not only the unknown. When I started submerging sharks, the known on the surface, what was told to me about sharks, sharks this and shark that and shark warning and be careful and shark do this and shark do that. And then I submerged and the known here did not match my known, which was my direct experience. Do not let people's projections reflect into your mind. I don't think joy is out there. I think joy is inside us.
Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. Cristina, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Cristina, your passion for sharks, underwater caves, and conservation is absolutely incredible. Can you share with our audience how did your journey as a shark ecologist, cave diver, and photographer begin?
Well, my journey started, I think my journey was a twofold. It started with a childhood dream. I had a childhood dream of wanting to be an underwater scuba ranger with sharks for friends. My dream job was to roam the oceans, go diving, and have the sharks follow me, and I will tell the divers what to do, what not to do, and protect the oceans. The development of that came many, many years later. When I was 22, I had an opportunity to learn how to scuba dive. Through a series of consequences, I ended up in the Bahamas. And when I was here, I started diving, and there were sharks in the water. And I was just like, this is it. I'm just going to do this for a couple of years and then go back and get a real job, build a traditional life. And that was 31 years ago. So first I became a diving professional and was diving with sharks, taking people diving with sharks. And it didn't take much to realize that my passion, my love for sharks was not naturally shared by others. And again, we're talking about 31 years ago. And so I embarked into this journey. Looking back, a lot of people think, well, yeah, of course, that makes sense. But it didn't. I was diving with sharks. I was very selfish. All I wanted to do is be with sharks. But when you love someone and you present someone that you love to maybe other loved ones, let's say you are with someone and you want to introduce them to your parents. You want to tell your parents how wonderful this individual that you're with is, oh, this person is amazing. And your parents are kind of like, well, not really. They have this defect, they have this issue. So you're like, no, wait, you need to get to know them better. And it was the same with the sharks. I love sharks, and people's perception was so negative that the first step was to start teaching people about what I really saw with sharks, the true nature of these animals. What were these real encounters? And then I realized that in order to do that, you need to understand sharks within their environment. That's where the ecology come in. But sharks within their environment, I think one of the biggest components that sometimes we forget when we study ecology, biology, whatever the studies are, is it is nowadays 99.9% interjected by human presence. So I think that a big part is also including animal ecology, but also anthrozoology. What is the humans do? What is the relationship with humans, with the ocean, not only with the sharks, with the environment, with the food that the sharks need, with the places that the sharks need to be able to reproduce, with the sharks themselves. And so that's how it was all built. I would say it all started from love of wanting other people to love my loved ones.
I absolutely love how you've shared this love for sharks. It's absolutely beautiful. And what lessons about joy and resilience have you learned from sharks and marine ecosystems?
Goodness, joy down there is so beautiful. There's just something so special about the water world, nature in general. I'm a big nature lover. But for me, the ocean is this embracing calming wounds. So it's a place of peace, of calmness. And when we are in that mindset, it's very easy to find joy because we are in the most positive feelings that we have. The lessons that I learned from sharks are numerous. We can look at sharks and really bring these lessons to the surface. And I think maybe through these lessons, really understand how different these animals are from the hearsay, the gossips that we have about our next door neighbors, right? We hear something about next door neighbors when we move into a neighborhood. We never take the time maybe to knock on their door and say, hey, I brought a pie. Let me get to know you. And then find out that these neighbors are actually amazing. So in a certain way, I feel that we're next door neighbors with sharks, the ocean, and we hear all these gossips and we never take the time to go and say, well, let me go and meet and make my own judgment. So that's the first thing is let's try to be less judgmental and give the benefit of the doubt. Let's not judge by somebody else's hearsay, by somebody else's comments. You see how this comes into life. Let's meet these people. Let's understand their history, their background. We might find that they're actually very nice people and that is just a hearsay or gossip. I think that's one of the biggest lessons. Do not judge the book by the cover. We keep repeating that. And the thing is, when you say shark, most people hear, a very scary music or think open jaws and sharp teeth. And, nobody says, if I say shark, would you think that there's a shark the size of a pen? Right? So when you say shark, do you think there's a shark the size of a bus that eats plankton, the whale shark? I also learned the very much the stereotype. Oh, the jokes, oh, the sharks, why they don't eat lawyers is a professional courtesy, all the stereotypes that we have. I mean, as women, I think we already have stereotypes. Just the looks in themselves to create sometimes a judgment from people about the persona. And take you as an example. Oh, you're blonde, blue eyes. So there's already a stereotype. How many blonde jokes have you heard in your life? Okay? It's something that sharks taught me. Do not stereotype. Just walk in somebody else's shoes before you start deciding who they are. And then one cute one, which I think is the one that is related more with sharks, is select your bites. There's this perception the sharks are in the ocean and anything that moves, they're just going to bite. And, oh, something moves, I'm just going to. It's like, that's a lot of wasted energy. And they don't do that. They're very cautious. They're very analytical. They're very methodical. And they very much select their bites. So before they invest all that energy, all that effort, all that maybe hyped up reaction, they very much like, whoa, what is that? And they have 7 senses, so they go check, 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 check. And I think that's a very important lesson also as humans. First of all, don't make a big deal about small things. Don't sweat the small stuff, right? That is a big one. The other one is very much invest your energy in what really matters to you. Do not spread your energy in all the little things and all the little petty things is not going to be productive. From a shark point of view, if they did that every time something moved or glistened or sparkled, they would absolutely waste so much energy. Then when is the time to go after their prey, they would be depleted. They would not have enough energy. Think about a cheetah, how long it takes for a cheetah to decide to run after an antelope. So it's a shark. So it's the same with us. It's like, let's stop wasting all our energy in all the small, petty little things and focus on what are the 3 things that I really want to invest my energy in. Some of the lessons that I picked up, obviously, those are very much anthropomorphic interpretation of shark behavior, but they're very much relatable as a human being watching sharks in their environment.
Really love everything you have shared. And I know that you have just brought in so many positive contributions to advancing the campaign that resulted in the declaration of the Bahamas as one of the first countries to create a shark sanctuary in 2011. And I was curious to know what brings you the most sense of fulfillment today from that accomplishment as you look back.
It's not in the accomplishment itself. It's in the Bahamians that I trained along the way in the art of scuba diving and diving tourism with sharks that 25, 22, sometimes 28, sometimes 10 years later, they come up to me and they're still somewhat invested into what they learn through that experience. I have a young man, he's not a young man anymore, but he was a young man when I trained them, that he is an instructor in the defense force and is still to this day paying attention to possible poaching of sharks, to possible risk of vessels encroaching in our waters. He also looks how shark interactions are conducted. He's very responsive. If somebody were to do harm sharks, which are protected, he's very on the side of sharks, and all that from that experience. And so these reports from these young men and women, they're not young, some of them, as much as I remember them, that of having embraced and continued a lifetime. Maybe they took a totally different road, but that experience with the sharks has taught them something that they're carrying with them through their lives, one of the lessons learned. And they still take the time to contact me and tell me, I have done this and I have achieved that. And I was watching this and I was like, oh, Cristina would never allow it to be done like this. And knowing that they're still emotionally and sometimes are still directly physically invested into what is their country, why this is such a fortunate place to have, such a magnificent country with so much to offer and so many sharks. And they treasure that, they treasure that in their hearts. I think that's what still brings me joy.
As a woman diver, what beliefs have shaped and inspired your work that can inspire other women to follow in your footsteps?
It's really interesting. When I started, I never actualized that I was a woman diver. I thought I'm a diver. I was noted that I was a woman diver by the projections of others, if that makes sense. So for me, as a woman diver who started in a different way and then was projected all these limitations by others, my biggest recommendation is do not let people's projections reflect into your mind. Will there be still maybe some obstacles? Maybe, yes, absolutely. Some differentiations between one and the other. Of course, that's some of it is human nature. The main thing is do not let their projection stop you in your footsteps, their judgment, their issues, their limitations convince you of those limitations. I'll give you an example. I had a question for a different article. It was for a women's magazine. And one of the questions they asked me was, what's the difference between men and women when you go diving with them? And I said, well, of course they're different, right? Men just physically are somewhat different. If you look at the top marathon runner, male and female, there's a difference in speed of about half hour. That's a long time. So there are differences. But one of the things that I noticed the most is sometimes women come in with these exceptional skills and they second guess themselves all the time. It's not good enough. I didn't do well enough. And then a man might come in with maybe either the same exceptional skills or let's say maybe even lesser skills, but their self-confidence is 10 steps higher. And so for women is start appreciating and know your worth. Do not start underestimating yourself because the world will do that for you. So this would be my biggest one is do not let projections cloud your judgment, and also do not underestimate yourself. There's plenty of people out there that are ready to do that for you.
Well said. Thank you. And what have been some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a shark advocate and conservationist?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've received is the known versus the experience. I'll give you an example. Like my three words by which I conduct my life, my work, My life, my work, my passion is my work is my life. It's all a big calderon. Is exploration, education, and conservation. And one of the biggest things that I say is we need to explore the known, not only the unknown. Yes, I'm a cave explorer. Yes, I explore the unknown. Yes, I do all of that. But one of the biggest things I did was explore the known, and I explain that when I started submerging sharks, the known on the surface, what was told to me about sharks this and shark that and shark warning and be careful and shark do this and shark do that. And then I submerged and the known here did not match my known, which was my direct experience. The biggest challenge that I received to this day is there's a lot of people that challenge my 30 years of known experience with their surface known that has no empirical application whatsoever. I think that is the biggest challenge. Well, sharks do this. It's like, do they? Have you been in the water with them? Have you spent enough time with them? Have you verified your statement? And it's like, well, no, there's a YouTube video. It's like, so when I tell people you need to explore the known, it doesn't mean sitting at home with a keyboard and just telling me that what I'm experiencing for 30 years is incorrect. It means challenge the known that you hear by experiences, by verifying. That's what science is at the end of the day. Even somebody that publishes a paper, you can still grab their paper and you can still try to verify if what their outcome, their response is correct, and say, no, I tried this experiment this way and actually it didn't work. And I think that's still the biggest challenge, is like this hearsay has more value than my 31 years experience, knowledge, studies, anything.
Well, you're certainly creating a dent in the universe in helping us understand more the realities based on your lived experience. And it's just so beautiful also to see that you're sharing these dives with your husband, which I understand is involved in the pictures you're taking, the videos that are being filmed as you're interacting with the sharks. Tell us about this shared moment of awe and wonder that you both have as you're diving into the water and discovering a world that is just magnificent. How long have you been diving together now?
So we've been together nearly 8 years, and that's the amount of time that we've been diving together. So Kevin is younger than I am and entered my life when I was already uh, a diver, a professional, a Women Diver Hall of Fame, and Explorers Club. I was a 46 at the time. We're about a little bit over 20 years apart. But one of the things that I joke, that is somewhat of a joke, is trying to explain the relationship we have. Is when Kevin walked into my life, like other people that I met during my life, he immediately understood that there was a second lover in our relationship. There was this passion, obsession, love for the ocean, for the caves, for the sharks, for what I do, for being in the water. And you realize it was not a relation between the two of us. There was this a third entity. And I think the most beautiful thing of Kevin is that he loves this third party as much and as equally and as intensely as I do. And that was the first person that really completely, fully embraced how I am, who I am. My lover says, oh, you love that. That's my lover too. When we're together, they call us a Velcro couple. We function together, we live together, we work together. This last couple of weeks have been excruciating because I'm out cave diving with some guests and he's out cave diving without a guest. We normally always doing things together. And we come up with ideas, we write them down. When things don't go well, we surface and we talk. There's no recrimination. We never had a spout on those things. Oh, well, if you had done the strobes this way. None of that. It's more about like, well, I felt this did not work, and what do you think? And there's this open conversation in which we say, I'm so sorry, I was so out of concentration, or I really didn't feel that one. Oh, we need to do it because I was doing this. And there's this open conversation. It's called, in diving, it's called debriefing. But at the end of the day, it's an open conversations without pointing fingers, sense of guilt. And we have that. We have that from being at home, working with the puppies, having to clean the apartment, because people forget, they think all we do is dive all day. We still have regular lives. And so we work together, we text, I'll do this, you do that. Good, that sounds like a good idea. Don't forget I have this. Yes, absolutely. And it's magical. And I jokingly say that, I had to wait for him to grow up, but we found each other. And then in that, the age difference has also uh, disappeared.
Talking about the magic that you just shared with your husband, you've also done something very, very magical together, where you have surveyed and created a map of the underwater Ben Cave system, extending to 36,000 feet, which I absolutely find incredible. How long did that project actually take you, and why was that so important for you to achieve?
So I did that first project in 2011, and that took me 2 years, because back then technology was not what it is now. When Kevin and I did it, we not only have done the mapping, we now done an interactive map. We also have done a 360 videos of the tunnels and 3D of all these systems. The concept is, obviously, if you look at my life, I picked a large and toothy animals that are perceived as large carnivorous animals, and wet rocks that are on the ground, underwater, in eternal darkness. And are two of the things that really scare people and they have a lot of misconceptions about. So how do you make people fall in love with wet rocks? And you surface them. But obviously you cannot chip the cave away, or also you don't want to bring up the crystals, you want them down there. So the first one is to say, hey, this is below your feet. But then you go, well, these are the pictures of what's below your feet. And these are the videos what's below your feet. And this is the 360 of what is below your feet. So you immerse them empirically into this very unique vast world. Not everybody can go cave diving. Not everybody wants to go cave diving either. And I totally get it. It's not for everyone. So the concept is, once you make them fall in love with that, then it's easier to protect. Exploration, education, right? So we explore, then we educate, and then conservation. That's when conservation comes in. You are going to protect someone that you love. You can say something. And to love someone, you need to understand them. Baba Dion said that very, very well. In the end, we will only protect what we love. We will love what we understand, and we understand what we are taught. He said that in 1968. So for us, it's like, well, let me show you why I love sharks. Let me show you why I love caves. Now, caves themselves, especially here, but in many places, are also very important for wealth of humankind. They are freshwater reservoirs. And freshwater is a commodity. Freshwater is, I think the wars will be fought over freshwater, not gold, not petroleum. I mean, right now, yes, but eventually freshwater is what will condemn the humankind if we're not paying attention to it. And so caves are very vulnerable to human presence because they're so out of sight and out of mind that people dump trash in the bush, oil, diesel, burn. Never mind people that fertilize constantly their garden, put all sorts of poisons. Oh, I have snails in my garden, let me poison the snails. And this entire concept that everything is mine and mine only, nothing else can touch it, right? I don't want the snail to eat some leaves of my flowers, but there's birds that eat the snails. No, I'm just going to poison the snails. So then you poison the birds and you have more snails. All of that ends up in the underground. In some places, like New York or other places, might go from the underground into the sewage, into the river, and then into the ocean. Here it goes from the land straight through the limestone into the cave, all throughout the freshwater supply and into the ocean. So the ramifications of protecting something that literally works like a circulatory system of a body is very, very, it's immense. But you need to bring it up. You need to show people where it is, where does it start, how does it flow, what does it do, so that they at least maybe relate a little bit. You are what you eat, so the cave is what you feed it. And if you feed pollution, it will become polluted and will transfer that pollution. And ultimately will, again, affect the mangroves, the nursery grounds, the ocean, the sharks, and us.
So well said. This interconnection that we all have with, with nature that we often overlook is it's so sad. So your efforts are incredible in that regard and helping awaken us and remind us of the importance to really think twice before we make actions that can have a domino effect, as you've just described. So thank you for sharing that. Um, I was wondering if you can also share a moment or a story from your work and your dives with sharks and through the cave exploration that have brought you a profound sense of wonder.
Oof, where do I start? Where do I start? Well, so in cave diving, there's something unique about cave exploration. There's the sound of the reel as it unspools in your hand as you very much go where no other person has ever gone before. I've been in places where there's been only me. There's been more people on the moon or around in space than has ever been where I've been. And that is profound. But in that is the details of the cave, the intricate decorations. Today, I just took one of my guests through this area that I call the Chinese Palace because it's all highly decorated with those tights and it's all red and color and yellow and it's just absolutely gorgeousness of celebration. And it's just every time I turn, and I've been there so many times, there's something different, a little things. That is for me. It never gets old. I think in the ocean, there's two. One is I witnessed the birth of the octopus. It was a female octopus with a lot of eggs, and I kept monitoring her and swimming by and checking her out. And one night I was checking her out and think about the timing, right? You have to be there on that minute, on that night dive, on a specific time. She was blowing all her hatchlings out. And so I actually witnessed an octopus giving birth. With sharks, I think the first time and every time that a shark comes into my lap and allows me to pat her on the head and just relaxes in that body language, she tells me, I'm okay here. I trust you. I'm comfortable. I think those are three of the many, many, many times on the water. I am someone that collects little Polaroid moments. I pause and I think, okay, this is going to be one of those things that I just want to remember. It could be just the reflection of the sunlight over the ocean, which I have tens of thousands of views already. But in that morning, I heard whales singing on the water. It pulled at the strings of my heart. I had tears coming out of my eyes. There's just so many little moments like that.
How beautiful. I've had the same moments, if you wish, in other wonders that I've seen around the world. Maybe being in the presence of these immense mountains, for example, on a recent trip in Switzerland, and it just made me think how often we amaze ourselves by a lot of human creation, but we forget in the process the beauty of nature, the beauty of these natural creations that we have in front of us and that we can actually discover and appreciate more every single day to awaken a deeper sense of wonder and joy within our lives. So
absolutely, and way more achievable. It's as easy as going outside and sitting on the grass for 10, 15 minutes and remaining still and let life just just expand around you and you start looking with your eyes, you don't move, and you can see a lizard or a bee or a flower, or you notice something, you may notice like a butterfly lands on the flower and then they're like, rubbing the pollen. And it just, when we start doing that, there is so much uniqueness in the what so many people consider the ordinary, but is also very much extraordinary in how beautiful it is.
Indeed. And this brings me once again to the topic of joy. And I wanted to ask you your view if there would be actually a recipe for joy, particularly inspired by the unique work that you do. What would be the three main ingredients to live more joyfully?
So I think the three main ingredients for joy is, one is no expectations. Go to life and just let life sometimes evolve. Understand that maybe it's not going to go this way and go that way, and trying to find what is positive about going that way. And I think that helps a lot into not creating this sense of expectations and then the sense of disappointment. But I think the other recipe for joy is understanding that, there's all these quotes out there and they sound so cliche, but it's very true. If we were in a constant level of pure joy, we wouldn't realize what a level of pure joy means. And so understand the life ebbs and flows. And when it ebbs is sometimes it's okay. To me, I learned that the day that I wake up and it ebbs a little bit, I sit there and I jokingly said, I invite my life, my ebbing life in, and I offer them tea and cookies. And then after I offered it tea and cookies, I'm like, okay, are you happy now? Now you can leave. I need to flow again, if that makes sense. So once we put in the concept that we cannot be eternally and constantly on this hyper joy, then we'll figure it out that joy is indeed made of small moments, of these little glimpses, of these details. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of things or actions or events, I think, for joy. And that comes to, a lot of people ask me, do you ever get bored to do the same thing over and over and over again? And I'm like, yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think maybe that is, we go back to the first thing. Once you love it, it brings you joy. So make sure you love what you're doing, who you are. That will bring you joy in itself. I don't think joy is out there. I think joy is inside us.
Fully agree with that. Thank you for bringing that out in the open for our listeners. And Christina, are there any specific projects or initiatives that you're particularly excited about moving forward?
Well, we're working on a next set of conservation projects for caves over a vast area. So we have already started, we've already done a couple of expeditions. It's expedition style, that means we have to go there with everything. And it's in this beautiful area with almost like over 15 different cave entrances, blue holes, land caves, highly decorated. The places that I explored and expanded back in 2015-16. And now with the modern technology, we're going back and creating more. So that is, I would say, the number one kind of like big project from that point of view. The other one is, I've been talking about it for a while, but it might come through now, is I've been working on a book. And so hopefully within the next couple of years, it will be nice if I could take also that step into finishing this project that is almost a decade long. And it happens, that you do this, you start a project, and then you put it aside because life takes over, and that would be like the other project that I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, the rest, right? I'm still going to be here diving with sharks, leading people, taking people encountering sharks, learning in caves, collecting information about the sharks in the caves, all of that. But like these are, would say, the two more specific projects.
If you were to quantify the number of people that you have touched through your work, and by giving them access to the beauty of the underwater, to seeing sharks with a different perspectives, how many people would you say you have positively impacted in over 30 years of doing what you do?
Honestly, I know it sounds maybe ambitious, but millions. because it's not just the my doing, but my doing becomes the message that somebody else picks up and shares. So I'm like the stone that's cast in the water and then creates all this ripple effect. And so my word is picked up by someone else who shares it with someone else, who shares it maybe in a language I cannot speak. So millions, definitely millions.
There's a lot of research that has shown the positive impact in being in water and being close to water on our mental health. And I was curious as to whether you have any thoughts or perspectives on that.
I would say absolutely yes, and in agreement. Uh, if I go 3 or 4 days without going in the water or scuba diving, Kevin sometimes looks at me and goes, "We need to go diving." But I would say yes. You don't really need studies to understand that. We spend the first 9 months of our lives in water. We have gill slits. I know, and when we come out, it's so brutal that we cry our lungs out. So I do understand why water can have this very calming effect on most people. Unless people had some traumatic events with water, in general, people find happiness and calmness. And I think it very much triggers into a subliminal memory that we have, that we don't really realize it's there, but I'm pretty sure it's there, of that warm, comfortable water environment where we were first born. So water is almost a return to the womb, a return to the origins. For me, going in the water is going home. I call that home.
I also know that you have a foundation, and I was curious if you can maybe share with our listeners if they are interested in supporting your work and in joining your efforts in protecting the oceans. What could they do specifically?
So my foundation is called People of the Water. It's nonprofit.org, and it was born to assist in what I was already doing, which is exploration, education, and very much continue the emotional conservation. Most of this cave conservation work is all done out of our own time and our own finances. So the nonprofit was established to hopefully, through people's donations, help us to expand this a little bit more. We host the scholars through the years. We host students. They stay for 2 to 3 weeks for free. We teach them scuba diving. We show them our work. We teach whatever they want to learn, from photography all the way to cave diving. So that's what the nonprofit is there for. And the kind of things that people can do by themselves at home is learning a little bit more about the interconnectivity of everything that we do. I know it sounds cliche, but reuse are very two good words. Recycle, not so much. Reduce and reuse. Understand, how to manage our lives better. Research the things that you're eating, for example, where it comes from, how it's produced, what are the effects. Change a little bit your expectations on how the world should be. Every single blade of grass doesn't have to be the same. Dandelions is not a weed, it's a flower. And maybe change that perception. Think about that is not all ours for us to have, but is to be shared. And that, I think, might help a lot into understanding that there's space for everyone on this planet. We just actually need to, as humans, make a little bit more space. So educate ourselves, change the way maybe sometimes we eat a little bit. And I'm not giving directions, but there's like a little bit more sustainable way of eating, a little bit less sustainable way of eating. So in the area that you are, you can actually Google that, figure it out, maybe what are things that we're doing without even thinking that may end up in the ocean and eventually come back to us anyway.
And what you point out is just so essential. And there was a research study that I was looking at recently that was pointing that in the next couple of years, we're likely going to be having more plastic in the ocean than there's actually fish.
Correct.
And that is so sad. And I imagine that through the years, you must have seen an incredible shift in the ecosystems that have been impacted by pollution. Um, Anything you may want to share with our audience as it relates to the devastation actually that you have seen as a result of our collective efforts? that would need to change to actually reverse and improve the situation?
Well, in 30 years, I've seen a lot changing. I dive these dive sites all the time. I call it dive site fidelity. I actually watch coral heads die. So I actually know each coral head that's passed away. Corals are animals. I've seen the increase of dust. I've seen the degrade of turtle grass. I've seen the lack of biodiversity. And I think sometimes we do not realize that everything we do is interconnected. And there's been some very good studies in the Yosemite Park, showing how reintroducing wolves help the fish do a comeback. Like how does the wolf help the fish, and how all everything interconnected is. I think one of the biggest suggestions for people is very much trying to understand that, and then try to relate a little bit more to what is evolving around us from that point of view. There's many reasons for doom and gloom, but if we sit there with the doom and gloom, then we will never find the solutions. So the last suggestions I will give people, which is, I think, the motor of who I am and what I've done, is believing in the power of one. Because, it's very easy to sit there and say, well, what I do will never make a difference, said 8 billion people. But there's individuals out there that believe in their own power. There's plenty of examples in humanity, positive example, of people that changed the course of history, that changed humanity, that did something positive just by believing in their own power, in their own actions. So believe in that power. Do what you can, what you have, where you are. And people will also watch and sometimes follow you by examples. You don't need to go out there and preach. They'll just ask you, oh, you do that. Why do you do that? Oh, you clean this 100 yards every day. I see you walking, you're cleaning this 100 yards. Or maybe I'm going to stop littering them, but I'm going to clean the next 100 yards. And that, I think, is what we need to do, is really believe that each one of us has the power to make the change that we want to see. And again, it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. I've seen it. I've seen it. We have a full shark sanctuary in the entire country.
What do you think we need to do collectively to bring more joy to this world?
I think is share it. I think once you spread out joy, once you share joy, joy will also reflect back and project back. So find the time to smile to someone. If social media is a big place, I make a point, whatever I see post or anything like that, to write something positive. If I don't like it, I just keep on moving on. But if I want to leave something behind, I leave a positive comment. And I think once you share that joy, imagine you share it with 10 people. Well, now you have 10 people sharing joy with you. There's so much joy coming back to you just by sharing, once. So I think is by sharing, you actually multiply it. And I know it sounds so terrible. It's like, what do you mean by sharing there's more? By sharing, there's more. I think that's, as a collective, we need to do, is share more of the joy that we experience.
Fully agree with that. Cristina, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think I really shared my biggest one is very much believe in the power of one. Honestly, be true to yourself. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to be what other people tell you to be. You should just be true to yourself. And I think in that you will find joy as well.
Amazing. Cristina, it's been an immense pleasure to speak with you today. Keep bringing joy into our world, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. It's been a very beautiful conversation.